I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is a special meeting of the Board of Education for the School District of Waukesha. It's Tuesday, February 22nd, 2022, the 2222. Don't get to say that often. I think it's the only time. Tonight we are gathered here to consider petitions to detach from the School District of Waukesha. So will you please take the roll call?
William Baumgart.
Here.
Corey Montiel. Greg Dietz.
Here.
Amanda Roddy.
Here.
Kelly Piasek. Here. Patrick McCaffrey.
Here.
Anthony Zenobia.
Here.
Karen Reinacek. Joseph Como.
Here. Both Karen and Corey are excused this evening. And Sue, have we been properly posted?
Yes, we have.
Thank you very much. Sue, will you please begin by reading the notice of hearing?
Please be advised that the Waukesha Board of Education will hear requests for detachment at a special Board of Education meeting beginning at 6 p.m. on Tuesday, February 22nd, 2022, in the boardroom of the Lindholm Building, 222 Maple Avenue, Waukesha, Wisconsin. The purpose of the meeting is to consider petitions to detach as follows. Max and Kate Krukov, representing parcels and undividable fractional ownership outlets contained in, around, or next to the Shire. All interested parties will be given the opportunity to speak to the board on this matter prior to official action.
Okay, thank you, Sue. Descriptions of the properties are provided in board packets this last weekend. The properties are on the boundary between the School District of Waukesha and the Elmbrook School District. I'm just going to talk a little bit about the DPI process here. Although this meeting is informal, the rules are formalized at the state level. The process involves both our district and the Elmbrook School District acting on this request. If both districts deny the request, there's no ability to appeal. If both districts approve the request, the detachment is complete. And if one district approves and the other denies the request, an appeal may be made by the petitioners to the Department of Public Instruction. I'm just going to go through the statutory criteria right now, and there's a number of them, so please be patient with me. The geographical and topographical characteristics of the affected school districts, including the estimated travel time to and from school for pupils in the school districts. Second one is the educational needs of all the children residing in the affected school districts, the educational programs currently offered by each affected school district, and the ability and commitment of each school district to meet those needs and continue to offer those educational programs. If territory is proposed to be detached from one school district and attached to an adjoining school district, whether the proposed detachment will have any adverse effect on the program currently offered by the school district from which the territory is proposed to be detached, including both curricular and extracurricular aspects of that program. The testimony of and the written statements filed by the residents of the affected school districts, the estimated fiscal effect of the proposed reorganization on the affected school districts, including the effect of the apportionment of assets and liabilities, whether the proposed reorganization will make any part of a school district's territory non-contiguous, the socioeconomic level and racial composition of pupils who reside or will reside in territory proposed to be detached from one school district and attached to an adjoining school district, or in a school district proposed to be dissolved. The proportion of the pupils who reside in such territory who are children at risk, as defined under State Statute 118.153, Parent 991, Parent A, and the effect that the pupils described in this paragraph will have on present and future socioeconomic level and racial composition of the affected school districts, and on the proportion of the affected school districts' enrollments that will be children at risk. And other appropriate factors we may consider also. The petition to alter the school district boundaries will be read by our clerk, Mr. Baumgart.
Thank you. And I will read this as it's presented, and there's a lot of P's and T's and S's and stuff like that in there, but that's just the way it's presented, so not trying to fool anybody. This is the way it's to be done. We, the undersigned owners, this is presented from the presenter, represent 50% of the owners or a majority of the electors owning or residing in the territory described below. File this petition to detach this described territory from the Waukesha School District and to attach it to the Elmbrook School District. Number 1, lots 7 through 13, the Shire, and an undividable fractional ownership in outlots 3 and 7, PT, SE1, 4th, SCC 20, and NE 1/4, SCC 29, T79, and T7N, R20E, 33,293 square feet, 0.76 acre DOC, 3262570, 2005, BRC 1088107 through BRC 1088113. Item 2, lots 26 and 27, the Shire Edition 1 and an undividable fractional ownership in outlots 3 and 7, PT, that's probably a point or part, portion, SE 1/4, SEC 20 and NE 1/4, SCC 29, T7N R20E, BRC 1088126 and BRC 1088127. 3, outlot 3, the Shire, PTSE 1/4, SCC 20 and NE 1/4, SCC 29 T7N R20E 59,521 square feet, 1.37 acres, BRC 1088100. And number 4, outlot 7, the Shire, PT SE 1/4, SCC 20, and NE 1/4, SCC 29 T7N R20E, 45,613 square feet, 1.05 acres, BRC 1088149. And that concludes that part of the presentation, and I'm going to turn over to Dr. Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Baumgart. I'm going to project up on this screen for the board and the audience. This is the neighborhood in reference. The red dot on the screen illustrates the house of the petitioner. And on the second map that I'm going to present to you, you will see in the blue or teal color the Elmbrook School District, and then in green the Waukesha School District. And I will zoom in on that a little bit so that you can see where the boundary lies between the Elmbrook and Waukesha schools.
So before taking testimony, I'd like to review the rules applicable to this hearing. This is an informal hearing, but we will record all of the information presented tonight. Each person offering information will come to the podium, sign the registration sheet if you have not already done so. Please state your name, address, and school district when addressing us. Speak distinctly so that we can be sure that your information is recorded properly. The procedure is to hear from the proponents and opponents of the petition. The proponents, those people asking for the school board to transfer the territory, will be heard first. Following the proponents, the opponents of the petition, those people who do not want the territory to be transferred, will be heard. Following the initial presentation by the proponents and opponents, there will be a short time allotted for rebuttal and/or summation by both sides in the same order as before. So what we'll do is we'll start with the opportunity for the proponents of the petition to address us. As each proponent speaks, I'd ask that you would first state your name, address, and school district of residence, and to please sign the registration sheet. Is that up next to you, Sue, or is that? Okay. There will be no time limit for speaking, but however, as chair, I will rule if too much time is used. We're usually pretty generous here. We do have two people signed up to address us tonight, Rich Durham and Max Krukov, I'm sorry. And Rich, did you want to start, or it doesn't matter the order, you can,
Yeah.
and others too can come forth and talk too, so come on up, Rich.
Thank you. Following the rules, my name is Rich Durheim. My address is 19405 Rivendell Drive in the Shire subdivision. I have been a resident of the Shire for 7 years. Built our house. What were some of the other requirements before I get the name, address?
Name, address, and the school district of residence.
Oh, yeah, the school district. I think as well as the others that are here tonight are all concurrently part of the Waukesha segment that was shown on the screen.
The blue, green,
Yeah, the green and that.
Mm-hmm.
Just some other facts you may know, but I think they're relevant to some of the issues. It's for Brookfield, because we're in the town of, the village of, city of Brookfield for taxes and other things like that. We are relatively small in terms of number of residences in our subdivision. 33. And I believe, Max, 11 in the school district? 8. Even better. No. It's so, I thought I was counting houses on the way out, but I maybe overcounted. Anyway, the reason that's important is part of what we're, a big part of what is driving this petition. When my wife and I were retired, moved in 7 years ago into our new house, I would say the subdivision was maybe 50 or 60%, 65% built out. We found the people didn't really know each other, and like I said, there were fewer even than now. We're full now for the full 33. So, and what we have found, I've observed in that 7 years of being there, that it used to be just people who were either with grown children or like us, and not too many were students in school at this point in time. I think there were some but very, very few relative to the number of houses. Today, 7 years later, there are many, many that see the buses and they out there playing and whatever. In the 7 years, that, like I said, the new houses have been built and others have moved in, and so the situation is much different. And we, being 33 people, we're a close-knit. The physical proximity or topography, as you see up there or saw before, is relatively small. There's the lower level, and then it circles up to the and so again, we're everybody knows everybody else. It's the kids play together. They're in some sports together, and to me, and they don't even understand why I can't get on that bus or do whatever, or it's things like that. So, but I think in the end, we moved to suburban communities to have just that, a community. And while we have our annual party, in the end, we're divided. We're divided by. These kids go to A and these kids go to B, and the majority go because there's more houses. 24 other houses are going one way, and then there's those that are not going to the same school district. So I'll let Max show the map and do other things, but to me, like I said, one of our residents here, who's on the board with me there. By the way, I'm the president of the HOA. Forgot to mention that. And our efforts. We have a small 3-person board. One of them, Sarah over there, is one of them. And we strive for community. We've had parties, and we have another one coming up in September. And this year, through our dues, we bought everybody poinsettias, from the board, and we continue to grow as a community. And this. Right, wrong, or indifferent, it would be so much better if we had all that together, and that's one of the reasons, and a major reason why I'm supporting this very strongly. So, and Joe, was it?
Yes.
Joe, Joe, you kind of rattled off the statutory issues, and I know that fiscal, or at least I get the sense from talking to people that the fiscal impact on the affected district may be an issue. I don't know all the numbers, but it's hard it's hard for me to imagine that 8 houses out of, I don't know how many houses are in the Waukesha school district, but how the impact, the fiscal impact of losing 8 houses to the Elmbrook could be that significant. But like I said, I don't have the numbers. So with that, I have no other comments. Any questions?
Thank you, Rich. We will have a chance to, so what we'll do, I guess, is there any questions for what Rich presented? Because we will have a chance to come back and ask more questions too. So we'll have each of you present, and then we'll hear from the opponents, and then we'll be able to have, again, some questions and some dialogue on it.
Okay. Okay, well then, thank you very much. I appreciate the
Thank you, Rich. And I think the only other person that we had signed up was Max, but again, more people can talk. Oh, okay. Thank you. Max, do you want to come forth? Well, welcome, Max.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Max Krukov. I live at 19325 Rivendell Drive in Brookfield. I'm part of the Waukesha School District, and I'm one of the houses that's proposing the detachment. So, first of all, I just want to say a sincere thank you to the board for meeting and hearing us out. I recognize this is a complicated issue, and so I just wanted to say thanks for the time. So you guys saw a picture of this earlier, but this, just to give you a sense, this is the Waukesha School District, and this label here is my house and my wife Kate's home. And then if you zoom in, you can see the border. So the red area here is the Waukesha School District, and the non-labeled side is the Elmbrook School District. And we live on Rivendell Drive, and the border goes right down the middle of our street. So that's kind of the essence of the petition and our humble request. So this is a zoomed-in version of our neighborhood, and so this is a zoomed-in version of our neighborhood. Here you can see Rivendell Drive is right here, and this is a picture of Rivendell Drive, and this is our home. So you can see the families and the kids literally right across the street from us go to Elmbrook, and these 8 homes are in the Waukesha School District. And what we didn't realize when we moved into our home, we have no moral opposition to being in the Waukesha School District. It's just we didn't realize that the kids across the street went to a different public school, and our kids have basically made friends with the other kids in the neighborhood. And the Elmbrook buses literally drive down our street. And how we're going to explain that, I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old daughter, how we're going to explain that and why they can't get on that bus is a pretty tough one, just starting from sort of a logical perspective. So, I'll leave this here. So this is a little bit more zoomed out. Okay, so these are our homes here. This is the northeast edge of the school district. And you can see right behind us is a big nature conservancy, so it's all forest. And the line comes up and it just grabs these 8 homes. And you can see how these 8 homes and our neighborhood are just all physically connected up here. And there's no, if you sort of zoom out and look at why these 8 homes are kind of grabbed from this physical connection, there's no kind of logical reason other than probably historical lines before the settlement was built, or the subdivision was built. And then if you zoom out even further, it's even more striking. So basically the line comes up and grabs a bunch of forest and then just these 8 homes. And so that's all we're requesting, is just that this sort of last little piece of the subdivision be allowed to join the school district to which we are physically connected. Brookfield Central is right there. Brookfield Elementary is right here. And the other piece of this, a large part of the motivation is both my wife and I are physicians at Freighter, and every minute we have to see our kids is precious. It's not easy. And a commute to the Waukesha schools is in the opposite direction, and depending on elementary, middle, high school is either 2 to 3 times as long in the opposite direction. So the reality of us being able to actually take our kids to and from school is far less than if we were to be districted into the schools to which we have much closer proximity and would be on the way to Freighter. So that's the motivation behind the request. The distances to the schools are in the petition, and the changes. If you look at map number 6, as an example, there's a Google map from our home to Waukesha North High School is 9.3 miles, and it's 15 minutes west, whereas the commute to Brookfield Central High School is 2.1 miles and 5 minutes east. So it's literally 3 times as long in the opposite direction. Having said that, I know there have been cases made about the potential for open enrollment into the local schools without a detachment. That was the first thing we looked into. I have included as an attachment a correspondence from the Elmbrook group about the potential for open enrollment. And they've basically said there's been no open spots for 6 years, and the chances of actually being able to enroll our kids through open enrollment is virtually zero. So I've attached that correspondence, and those are the highlights. So the big, just to sort of summarize, the big thing is the line right down the middle of our street. The buses to the Elmbrook schools come right down our street. Our kids have made friends with the people in our community, so we're hoping that you guys will see that. The driving distance is just an objective barrier to our quality of life. The opportunity for open enrollment, where it may have been realistic some time ago, sounds like it's probably not a realistic option anymore. And the potential for my wife and I to make time with our kids on the way to and from school and potentially take them ourselves is likely not possible with commutes to Waukesha schools, where it likely might be to Elmbrook. So with that, I'll conclude and take any questions.
Any questions this time? Okay, Max, thank you.
Thank you.
And we did have a third person, Cheryl Lavender. Welcome, Cheryl.
Hi. Oh, thanks for this opportunity, everybody. My name is Cheryl Lavender, and I live at 19145 Rivendell Drive in the Shire. And I'm a retired music teacher of 37 years.
Is that within the school district of Waukesha boundaries?
No, it's Waukesha. I'm sorry, I forgot to say.
Elmbrook or Waukesha?
Waukesha School
okay.
District. Sure.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that.
That's okay.
at the outset.
No problem.
I'm a retired music teacher of 37 years and the recipient of an honorary doctorate degree in music education through the Vandercook School of Music in Chicago. And I only say this just to try to earn your trust in the integrity of my comments. As the parent of 3 grown successful children, 2 engineers and 1 pharmacist, and the grandparent of 8 children. I just want to say that our family has been so grateful, having benefited immensely from living in a socially networked neighborhood in the Elmbrook district at the time, whose children also attended the same schools as ours. In this environment, friendships thrive, parents support one another, carpools transport kids to and from athletic and arts events, clubs, scouts, and so much more. Students work on projects together, and they become pals in the process. This type of camaraderie nurtures family strength and support. I appeal to this board's global sense to view this petition from a wider lens that focuses on all of our families. no matter which school district our families are from, can we, together, as Wisconsin citizens, affirm that our common intention is to build strong and supportive learning communities, starting with our common foundation, all of our families? I sincerely hope so. The strength of our families makes for stronger communities. The strength of our communities makes for a stronger state of Wisconsin. The strength of our state makes for a stronger United States. On behalf of all our children and their families, I commend this fine board of leaders for giving this petition your most serious consideration. Thanks again for the opportunity. Any questions that you might have?
Anyone?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Cheryl. Would anyone else like to address us? Okay. We're going to move on to an opportunity for opponents of the petition to speak. As each opponent speaks, I would ask that you first state your name, address, and school district of residence, and to please sign the registration sheet. There will be no time limit for speaking. However, as chair, I will rule if there's too much time, if too much time is used. Sue, did anyone sign up? Are there any opponents in the audience that would like to address us? Okay. So at this time, I'd like to allow the proponents an opportunity for any rebuttal, which there shouldn't be any because there weren't any folks here, or a summation. If someone would like to come up and summarize, that would be fine, and if not, that's okay too. Okay, all right. We'll skip the opponent section next, and at this time, I'll close the public presentations on the petition and open up the school board for deliberation. The only information presented hereafter will be on the request of the school board members concerning the information received by them or brought out in this meeting. Are there any questions or information that any board member would like to have answered or clarified at this time? Yes, Mr. Baumgart.
Just a real simple one, I think. Of the elementary, middle, and high school, I know they go to North High School with this program. Which elementary, I'm assuming it's probably Hillcrest, is that correct? And what about middle school?
Horning.
It is Horning, okay.
Mr. Zenobia?
Thank you. Just a question here, looking at the names and the homes that this would affect. There's a few students that are currently in the Waukesha School District, correct? That's what this says, that we know of?
Correct. We have record of 6 students, school age, I did emphasize school age students, not to say that there aren't little kids who live in the area, but school age children who have either attended West or eAchieve Academy. And we do have information that some of the students in the area attended the Brookfield Academy.
If this were to go through, these students would be able to open and enroll in Waukesha? Is that a possibility to continue?
There would be grandfathering.
Yeah.
That they would have to apply for a alternate application for open enrollment to stay in the district, and then they would have to then apply for open enrollment the following year if they wanted to stay.
Have we heard anything from the families with children currently in the district on this topic, or they not made any type
That's
of?
me. I'm the mother of them, if you'd like to hear from me.
I guess my question is just for the students that this could potentially affect, what,
So my daughter...
Would you please come forward and
Yes, sir.
let us know who you are, please?
Sure. My name is Sarah Duthie. I live at 19185 Rivendell Drive, and that is currently in the Waukesha School District. So my husband and I, my daughter is one of the students. She goes to Waukesha West. That is because we're a blended family. My ex-husband lives right next to Waukesha West, and that's where her brother went, and that's where we have enrolled her. So I don't think there's anything that we would need to do for her to continue to go to Waukesha West because her school address is at my ex-husband's. And then my stepson goes to Brookfield Academy, which isn't in the Waukesha School District. But I don't know if my husband wants to speak, but we would like, if this went through, we would definitely consider sending him to Brookfield Central High School. But right now, he goes to Brookfield Academy. Anything else? Okay, thank you.
There could be. We'll see what questions we have. Other questions or comments? Any questions of the information that we received in our board packets this weekend? Dr. Piasek?
I do have a clarifying question, and I might have the answer based on what's been represented here tonight, but maybe for administration. Based on what's provided to us, do we have students who are actually receiving busing to Waukesha in that subdivision? We're not sending buses out there?
We do not currently have a request for transportation in that area.
Okay. Do you know how far our farthest bus into Brookfield is going right now?
I do not. I would have to look at what busing we have to Hillcrest and Horning. Those would be the two that would, where it would go into this neighborhood. I don't have that with me right now.
That's fine. I'm okay with that.
Other questions? Darren, I'd like you to go through, I think it was Max who was talking about he wasn't sure of the financial impact. We do have a financial impact. And there's a couple pieces to it. Would you mind going through that, and can we throw that information up on the screen
Joe, can you
here,
bring
or?
it up? It's part of the slide deck.
Yeah, so there's three larger pieces of the financial puzzle. The top third of the page is lost tax revenue, and what that calculation is simply our tax rate times the property value that's identified in those 8 homes. So we would lose the tax revenue of almost $75,000, but in this number, that $75,000 would be redistributed to increasing taxes for the rest of the school district, because we have to get to our revenue limit somehow. So we have to redisperse that across the district. Part of this process would also, and again, I'm not exactly sure how this would be calculated, so I'll just share with my methodology of estimating it, is the apportionment of assets and liabilities. Those taxpayers in that neighborhood have helped fund our balance sheet, essentially. So what I did is I went back to our June 30th financial statements, and I took our total assets and our total liabilities, calculated the difference, and then multiplied the percentage of property value that this area takes in terms of our overall stance. So the estimate, and I'll stress estimate, of the apportionment of net assets would be $101,000 to the receiving district or Elmbrook, because we have more assets than liabilities, which is a good thing, but again, they have a share of that. The bottom is really the operational revenue loss that would come, and right now there's 6 kids, and this is just their gross revenue because it was the best number we had. If there's 6 kids in that attendance area, and I also ran it for 12 kids just because it could change over time, but under 6 kids, we would lose $65,000 of annual revenue or tax revenue or tax levy authority. And if it went to 12, it would be $131,000. Again, these are just 2 benchmarks of data. That, as you know, the number of kids in houses changes on an annual basis, so I thought I'd give you a range. So that is actual loss of revenue. So the real cash out for us, based on the current enrollment that's in this area that we have identified, is $65,000 annually, based on our current funding levels, and then a loss of $101,000 under the process of the apportionment of assets and liabilities. So I can answer any other questions you might have.
So a lot of times when we have these discussions, we kind of put it in terms of, well, what does that mean to us? We talk about teachers, we talk about aides. What might these monies go towards? I mean, it could go towards literally anything, but what would be roughly the number of FTEs from a teacher perspective would this be?
The annual loss, just looking at the 6 FTE of students, would be 1 teacher, $65,000. If it gets closer to 10 or 12, you're looking at 2 teaching positions to provide you some scale. The $101,000 estimate is a one-time disbursement. That's not an ongoing disbursement of funds, but that's, again, 1.5 teaching positions for a year, or $100,000 of a facility project that we may be able to address. So hopefully that helps you put some scale to the dollars that are involved.
What if we were to translate that into, let's say, teacher aides, or, you know, for like the special needs children, or that type of aid? Yeah,
most of our aides work 5.75 hours per day, so I'm using that as the measure. And they make about $25,000 a year. So at the 6 student level, you're looking at 2.5 of those, almost 3 of those, totaling up to $65,000. Obviously, it's more if the enrollment would increase in that area. And then however you want to look at the $101,000 as a one-time expenditure, if you look at that as aides, that's 4 aides in that 1 year that would come from the disbursement.
So this is the one time?
Right there.
This is recurring every year?
Yep.
Right, okay.
Yep, and the 101's my guesstimate. And maybe they'd use our upcoming financial statements, but our financial statements should be pretty consistent, I would think. But they would have to take a snapshot at some point in time of assets and liabilities.
May I ask a question? Is that allowed?
Sure, go ahead.
So I would like to understand what the additional cost of sending a bus to pick those children up. Currently, there is none of those children that are going to that school district, so nothing has had to have been provided by Waukesha North or Horning or the elementary. So what would the cost of that additional transportation be? I know you've said you don't have the information with you, but I think that's something to look at of what the offset of that would be. I'd also like to understand if the tax contribution of our 8 homes per year, you said was roughly $10,000 per year for the net of 65. What's the average of the homes within the Waukesha School District? What is their average tax contribution?
I don't know if I have the answer to that question.
Okay.
for the
so
average home. I don't know the total number of homes in the district to be able to calculate that.
What is the percent of, if you look at the annual revenue, what, $65,000, what percent of your annual revenue is that, of that loss? What would that be?
That would be almost 0.1%.
0.1%.
Mhm.
I would just like to emphasize the community piece that we are trying to bring our neighborhood together. This neighborhood has not leaned on the Waukesha School District for any resources for our children. Yet we're contributing to the school district, but we live in the community that is the Elmbrook School District. So I just want to make that point again.
Okay.
And on your first question, I mean to skip over it, a bus is about $50,000 a year, but I also don't know if we would need to add a bus to go pick up those students either.
Most likely a route would just be expanded.
Yeah,
And our
Right,
cost
but there's
is-
an expense
and
there. There's also an expense to the other families, which adding that time. If you're talking about an additional round trip from, we used to live in Brook Park.
The point, ma'am, the point is we probably wouldn't add a route. We would just expand a route. And really the cost,
Right, but I'm talking about time right now for those other children. If they get picked up and then have to expand that route and go all the way, out of the way to get the other kids, then you're talking about time in the morning, earlier school pickups, longer bus rides for other children as well. So just other points, other perspectives and points of view.
okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. So just to maybe widen the perspective out here, we're in the process of working on a structural deficit of anywhere between $3 and $4 million a year. This next year, we're looking at, to really give you a broad picture, we're looking at a $7.3 million reduction out of our budget as compared to, or a $7.3 million reduction in order to balance our budget coming into next year, starting to help us with that structural deficit. So if we were going to go big picture, that's our biggest picture to help put this in perspective. Any other questions of the information that we received in our documents this weekend? Any comments by board members? The reason why I bring up the financial aspect is this seems relatively small, especially from a percentage that you had pointed out. But there is some true loss to our district. May seem small. 1 to 2 teachers, 2.5, 3, maybe up to 6 aides. That all adds up as we're considering this. So financially, it seems small, but it does have an impact. Okay, Dr. Piasek?
I really didn't come in with a lot of questions because I appreciate the information that was provided. I appreciate the comments provided by the community. I do think that we have to be careful about assuming losses when we're talking about services that we're not providing, though, because if these students are opting to either go to private school or to open and enroll in another district, we're losing out on the federal revenue on that, but we are also not providing educational services to those students. So I appreciate what you're saying, and it's not lost on me the financial position that this challenges. But I think the actual loss that we need to acknowledge is the fact that it sounds like a majority of these students are opting into whatever other options are available. Unfortunately, it's not their closest public school district. And I think just by the nature of these charts, I mean, our district is pretty jagged. We've got quite a few surrounding communities who probably find themselves in a similar situation where the district lines cut through a subdivision. But I am struggling a little bit with just, assuming that there's a, $130,000 revenue loss when we're not actually providing services to those students in seats in our district. I think that's...
Yeah, it's an estimate that looks at things that we don't know right now, right? How many children potentially would go through those, live in those homes. And so...
Right. I mean, not to say what motivates someone to buy a home, but I think with the understanding of where the district lines are and what districts those homes fall into, I suspect there won't be a lot of school-age children, families moving into those homes. I don't know. If they choose one or the other, right? So 12 seems like a big number to me to assume that would generate revenue to the district.
Darren, how did you choose the numbers?
I just looked at the number of houses and said there could be 2 kids in a home.
Sure.
Okay.
Just to kind of provide you that.
Just a basic.
Yeah. No, and I appreciate the analysis. I just think at this point in time, it seems like we're just not providing services even to the children that are there, so.
Any other comments? Okay, we do have, I'd like to just review the potential decisions that we have to make. There's really 2 alternatives. We could deny the request for transfer of the territory described in the petition, or we could make a decision to grant the request for the transfer of the territory described in the petition. Does that make sense? Okay. Seems straightforward. So at this time, I would entertain a motion for either of those cases, and a full motion. If you could read that, please. Mr. Bumgardt?
I'm comfortable doing this, but I will deny, I move to deny.
Bill, will you turn on the mic? Yeah.
I will move to deny the request for transfer of the territory described in the petition.
Okay, is there a second to that motion? I'll second that. Okay, discussion?
Just a clarifying question, if I could, on the process. Has this been reviewed? This would first come to us, and then it would be reviewed by Elmbrook if there was...
Yeah, they have to review it anyways.
That happens.
No matter what.
After this, regardless of the decision in here?
I don't know if it's after or before.
Yeah, that's correct. They have a meeting set for Thursday, regardless of the decision.
Okay. Yes, Ms. Ratty?
Thank you. So a follow-up question to that would be then, if, I don't know if we can answer this, but if Elmbrook denies it, then are these families back to Waukesha?
Well, we haven't completed our vote yet, so there's really 3 scenarios. If us and Elmbrook both deny, then, then everything remains the same, and you don't, the petitioners do not have the ability to go to DPI and ask for an appeal. If both districts approve the detachment, then it happens, and it takes place, I believe, on July 1st. Is that correct, Dr. Siebert? for the next following school year. And then if it's a split decision, one district yes, one district no, then the petitioners can appeal to DPI. Does that make sense? So we don't know what Elmbrook is thinking because they haven't met, and we have on the table for consideration right now a motion to deny. So my reasoning for seconding the motion that Bill made is, if you're to take a look at the offerings that we have in our school district, we're very strong and very competitive with Elmbrook. I think you got a list of our programs. You guys are pretty familiar with our programs, and we have in some cases we have some things that Elmbrook doesn't really offer. And then they have some things that we don't offer. So, I mean, from my perspective, they're both really fine districts. That was one of the other things that we need to take into consideration. So I didn't want that to get lost either. We really hadn't talked through that very much. So I would, from an educational perspective, I would feel comfortable with the children going to either district, honestly. Yeah, I don't think from a socio-economic level, racial composition, I really don't. I think it's really a push there from my perspective. So that really doesn't come into play for me in my decision. Don't know if there's any other of the statutory requirements that I do believe that the comments, the primary thing that I took from the comments is community, and that was your focus, and I understand that. I applaud you for that being your primary argument. That was your number one. There were other components, but that was your number one, and I can understand where you're coming from there. Community is important, and I can see how it would be difficult, Max, to explain to your children, well, why you can't go to school with your friends in Elmbrook. But we do have borders similar, and we will always have a border. And these borders don't necessarily always make sense to us. They are drawn up on, from, the historical past. And there are other families that do go through this conversation with their children. We just have borders, and we won't get rid of borders. We can't. And I understand what you're saying too, Kelly, that this is, maybe diminuous from a financial perspective, but I don't know that really at this time.
I just want to clarify, I was not making that point. I was just making the point that the assumption of 12 students was
Okay, fair enough. That
possibly unrealistic.
Okay. Well, I'm going to take the big picture here again, and I brought it up with us reducing $7.3 million. It might not seem like a lot of money, but each aide and each teacher, we have to figure out how are we going to pay for them? How are we going to do that? And that was the reason why I seconded Bill's motion. I really think that we should deny the request, and that's the way I'm gonna vote in this case. Other questions or comments? This is board discussion right now only.
Well,
No.
you, at one point, when I was up, you said you get your chance to come up and rebut.
Well, there wasn't, well,
Did you ever?
there weren't any public citizens to rebut, and it was really, that was for public citizen rebuttal. That wasn't for the board debate. We never allow during board debate citizens to comment for any of our reasons, or for any of our meetings.
I understand that, but
Rich?
I missed when that part.
There wasn't really anything to rebut because there were no citizens that,
But you said that I had.
Rich, this is time for the board to debate, period. Okay? Thank you. Other questions or comments, Mr. Baumgart?
I just want to reflect backwards. This is the second time from 11 years ago we did this for a very similar property. I'm not sure exactly which parts of that estates were done 11 years ago. Same situation. They're requesting a transfer of it into, move that property into Elmbrook, and we said no. Went to DPI, said no. So we stayed basically the way it was. And the people that are in that community must know that this is the way it was going to be, because that decision was made 11 years ago, and they knew that the houses that were on that line were going to be in the Waukesha School District. So if they didn't like that then, why now? So just a little adding something that there's some history to it.
Other questions or comments? Okay, so I'm going to just review what a yes vote means and what a no vote means. So we have a motion to deny the detachment. So a yes vote means you do not support the detachment request. A no vote means that you do support the detachment. Make sense?
It's confusing, but it's...
Yeah, that's why we need to, I think, take some time and explain it. So a yes vote means that you support or deny the detachment. A no vote means that you support the detachment. Any questions on that? Okay, so these are a written ballot vote. So the purple one is what we're looking at. And if you would make your vote and sign it, and then Sue will come around to collect it. And once you've finished tallying them, you can let us know if the motion carried or failed.
The detachment request is denied.
Okay. We do have to authorize this via resolution, and in your green folder, that resolution exists, and it's, in this case, because it's written in a way for denial and, or for, it's an or. Either denial or acceptance of. Yeah. So, let me just make sure you each have that. I think we have it, don't we?
I don't know.
Motion, it's this sheet here. This one is,
No, the resolution itself.
oh, I have that. It'll be passed around to sign.
Okay, so basically, the resolution, in this case, I think we need to have an understanding of what it is, Sue. So why don't you read the resolution?
Okay.
I thought we had copies of it.
Just make sure, because I've got them both, okay.
And obviously read it with the denial.
Review one.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas a meeting of the school board of the School District of Waukesha was held on February 22nd, 2022, and whereas a petition has been filed with the clerk of the school board pursuant to State Statutes 117.11 to 13, Wisconsin Stats, proposing to detach the following described territory from the School District of Waukesha and attach said territory to the Elmbrook School District. Do you want me to read all the lots and everything?
No, I think that,
And whereas a
Yeah.
public hearing has been held on the proposed reorganization by the school board pursuant to State Stats 117.11 to 13, Wisconsin Stats, now therefore be it resolved that an order be issued and filed denying the petition upon which the said hearing has been held.
would anyone like to see that or have questions on that resolution?
We are each signing it?
Well, we first have to vote on the resolution, right? Or, no, it's just a signing? We took our vote.
We'd have to
But don't we
vote
have
on
to
the
move?
motion for the resolution.
Yeah, yeah.
That is just a roll call.
So I would be looking for a motion to adopt the resolution as presented.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Baumgart. Is there a second on adopting the resolution?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Dietz. And this is, a verbal roll call. Sorry, we don't do this very often, so. Go ahead, Sue.
Anthony Zenobia,
Aye.
Patrick McCaffrey.
Aye.
Greg Dietz.
Aye.
Amanda Roddy.
Aye.
William Baumgart.
Aye.
Kelly Piasek.
Aye.
Corey Montiel. Joseph Como.
Aye. Passes 7-0. Sue, we do need each of our signatures on
On the denial.
the resolution. And I appreciate everyone's time this evening, the petition as you brought forth, and I appreciate the efforts and the comments that you made to help put this in perspective from your perspective for us for consideration. We do stand adjourned.